The intergalactic hub of Area Station buzzed with life as travelers from across the galaxy flowed in and out of the massive spaceport. Among the endless variety of species, tall, short, scaly, and smooth, one thing was certain. This place was never dull. It was a haven for merchants, diplomats, adventurers, and thrill-seekers. Some came for trade, some for information, and some, like Jack Harrow, came simply to see what would happen next. Jack wasn't the type to follow any specific plan. He liked to go with the flow, and on this particular day he found himself at the bustling bar of the station, trying his luck with a drink that had an odd, shimmering purple hue. The moment he took a sip, he felt an odd warmth spread through him, a feeling he had gotten used to whenever he found something new and interesting. And Area Station was full of both. He looked around and grinned. Aliens were everywhere, some with 4 arms, others with wings, and some that looked almost human but with subtle differences. Extra eyes, odd skin tones, or strange patterns etched across their faces. It was a thrilling sight, and Jack soaked it all in. But his attention soon turned to a figure across the room, a woman with silver skin and violet eyes. Her presence was magnetic, drawing the eyes of everyone around her, yet she seemed completely indifferent to the gazes of others. Her name was Zira, and Jack had seen her enter earlier, making her way through the crowd with an elegance that was hard to ignore. She was of the Xanthi species, a race known for their intelligence and fierce loyalty to their people. The Xanthi weren't usually known for mingling with humans, and Jack found it curious yet intriguing. As he approached, he couldn't help but smile. She was standing alone at the bar, sipping what looked like a glowing green drink, her eyes scanning the room thoughtfully. "Mind if I join you?" Jack asked, flashing his most charming grin. Zira didn't immediately respond. Her gaze lingered on him for a moment, measuring him up, before she gave a small nod. "It's a free station," she replied, her voice calm but with an edge of authority. "You may." Jack slid onto the bar stool next to her, still grinning. "Not often I get a chance to sit next to someone like you," he said, eyes glinting with playful mischief. "You're a long way from home." Zira raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything for a moment. Jack was used to this. His casual approach often caught people off guard. He could see her calculating his every word, though, deciding whether or not he was worth her time. "I'm here for business," she replied after a short silence. "But I suppose I could entertain myself for a while." Jack leaned in slightly as if sharing a secret. "Business, huh? I guess I could help make it a bit more fun. A change of pace, you know?" Zira turned to look at him fully now, her violet eyes locking with his. "And how exactly would you do that?" Jack's grin widened. "Easy, I'm Jack Harrow. I specialize in making things interesting." His tone was light, almost teasing. "Consider me your personal guide to the uncharted territories of Area Station." Zira studied him for a long moment, and Jack could almost hear her thoughts. He was certainly charming, but there was more to him than just that. His casual confidence, though slightly arrogant, had a certain charm that made him stand out in a crowd. "Uncharted territories, you say?" Zira's lips curled into a slight smile, the first sign of interest she had shown. "And what makes you think you could keep up with someone like me?" Jack's grin only grew wider. "I've been to places that would make even the toughest aliens blink. Besides, I'm sure I can learn fast enough to match you." Zira's smile widened just slightly, a flash of amusement in her eyes. She leaned back in her chair, considering him again. There was something about Jack, something different. He didn't seem to fear her, nor did he treat her as an alien like most humans would. His confidence was unshakable, and that intrigued her. Humans were, in her experience, often brash and foolish, but this one was clever and charming. "Very well," she said, her voice taking on a more playful edge. "Prove it." For the next hour they engaged in light-hearted banter. Jack found that Zira wasn't as cold as he had originally thought. Beneath her poised exterior was a sharp mind, one that matched his wit at every turn. She made subtle jabs at his human nature, teasing him about the primitive ways of his species. But Jack just laughed it off, returning each comment with a quip of his own. He even tried to impress her with his knowledge of various alien cultures, though he mostly relied on his charm to keep the conversation flowing. As the night went on, Jack noticed something strange. Zira's laughter wasn't the kind of controlled, polite laughter that he had expected from someone so refined. It was genuine, something rare in the galaxy, and it made Jack feel more at ease. For the first time in a long while, He felt like he wasn't just playing a game of flirtation but engaging with someone on a deeper level. But as the hours slipped by, a subtle change began to shift in the atmosphere. Zira's eyes, once light and playful, grew more intense. Jack couldn't quite place it, but something in her manner had changed. Her casual aloofness had shifted into something more serious. "Tell me, Jack," Zira said suddenly, her voice softer now but her eyes fixed firmly on him. "What do you know about the galactic politics surrounding Earth?" Jack blinked, surprised by the sudden change in topic. "Galactic politics?" He laughed lightly. "I know a bit. Earth's just kind of out there, right? We're not exactly a power player, more like the underdog of the universe." Zira's gaze didn't soften. She seemed to be weighing his words carefully. "And what if I told you that Earth is about to become very important in the eyes of several major factions?" Jack's smile faltered for a moment. "Important? How?" Zira leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Because Earth is the key to a power struggle. And you, Jack Harrow, have just become part of that struggle." Before Jack could respond, a sudden shiver ran down his spine. Something about her words felt too serious for this light-hearted evening. He had thought this was just a fun exchange, a way to kill time on a station full of strangers, but now it seemed like the game had changed. "Why don't you stay a little longer?" Zira continued, her voice steady but now carrying an undertone of something far more intense. "I think we have much more to discuss." Jack hesitated. Something in the air had shifted, and he wasn't sure if it was because of Zira's sudden change in tone or something else he couldn't quite understand. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Before he could reply, Zira added, "But don't make the mistake of thinking you can leave the station easily." "Not anymore." Jack raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by that?" Zira didn't answer immediately. She just stared at him, her violet eyes dark and unreadable. The playful atmosphere had vanished, replaced by an unsettling tension that hung in the air like a storm ready to break. And just like that, Jack's light-hearted evening had taken a sharp turn into the unknown. The hum of Area Station's central hub was deafening as Jack sat across from Zira, still processing her last words. His initial flirtation, the light-hearted banter, and the easygoing chemistry between them seemed like a distant memory now. The weight of her words lingered in the air, thick with an unspoken tension that Jack couldn't ignore. He took a slow sip from his drink, trying to play it cool, though his mind raced. Earth, the underdog planet of the galaxy, was suddenly at the center of a vast political struggle. It didn't make sense. Humans were nothing more than curious, somewhat primitive creatures to most galactic species. What was Zira saying? Was this some kind of trick? Zira, her posture rigid now, regarded Jack with those intense violet eyes as if waiting for him to react. Her expression had turned serious, the playful spark from earlier completely gone. Jack couldn't help but notice how her silver skin seemed to gleam under the dim lighting, her features flawless and calculated like a living work of art. "Don't look so confused," Zira said, her voice steady, yet laced with an almost imperceptible urgency. "I know this sounds strange, but trust me, it's the truth. Earth has caught the attention of the galaxy's major factions." Jack set his drink down and leaned forward. The bar around them still hummed with activity, but it felt as if he and Zira were the only two people in the vast spaceport now. "Factions? What do you mean by that?" Jack asked, his mind trying to make sense of what she was saying. Zira's gaze never wavered. "You've heard of the Verxi, haven't you? The war-hungry species from the Outer Rim? Or the Illics, the peaceful scholars who control vast swathes of knowledge? There are dozens more, each with their own goals, their own agendas. But right now they're all looking at one thing, Earth." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Why, what do they want with us?" "That's the part you'll need to understand quickly," Zira replied, her voice low, almost as if speaking to herself. "Earth, despite being isolated for so long, is about to become a pivotal point in this galaxy. Your species, unpredictable as you are, have developed something the galaxy's most powerful factions want. Your potential. It's untapped, raw. The way humans adapt to new environments, to hostile situations, is unlike any species I've encountered." Jack blinked, surprised by the praise. "I thought you said we were primitive." Zira's lips twitched into a faint smile, but it wasn't a teasing smile. It was something different, almost respectful. "You are. But that's what makes you so dangerous. You haven't fully realized your potential yet. If Earth were to unite and harness its strengths, it could rival any empire in the galaxy. That's why these factions want to control Earth. Jack's mind was racing. He never thought of Earth in such a way. Most humans on their home planet had no idea how advanced or dangerous the galaxy truly was. To them, space was just a curiosity, a distant dream of exploration. But Zero was saying something different. Earth wasn't just a backwater planet anymore. It was a power struggle waiting to happen. So, what do you want from me? Jack asked, his tone shifting to one of genuine curiosity. Zero had his full attention now. If Earth was really at the heart of an intergalactic struggle, then Jack was about to be in the middle of something far bigger than he ever expected. Zero's eyes softened for a brief moment. I need you to stay on Area Station. I need your help. Help? Jack repeated, unsure of where this conversation was headed. Why me? I'm just some guy from Earth. Zero didn't answer immediately. She looked out over the station, her expression unreadable. It's not about who you are. It's about what you represent. You are human, Jack, and I believe your presence here is no accident. The factions have already started making moves, and they will not hesitate to use anyone, even you, to get what they want. Jack felt his stomach tighten. So what am I supposed to do? Sit back and watch the galaxy tear itself apart? No, Zero said, her voice suddenly sharp. I'm asking you to be part of a plan, one that can tip the scales in Earth's favor. You'll help me navigate the politics of these factions. You'll learn to use their tactics against them, and together we can keep Earth safe. Jack thought about it for a moment. The idea of becoming embroiled in galactic politics seemed like something straight out of a science fiction novel. But the urgency in Zero's tone told him she wasn't joking. If Earth was really at risk, if the galaxy's most powerful factions were watching them, then maybe Zero's offer wasn't as crazy as it sounded. But why me? Jack asked again, his voice more serious now. I'm just some guy who likes to flirt with aliens and see where the night takes me. I'm no diplomat. Zero leaned closer, her voice low but firm. Because, Jack, you have something these factions don't. You have a human perspective. The way you think, the way you adapt. That's what we need. These factions underestimate you. They see your species as weak, but you're not. Not when you're united, and that's where you come in. You'll help me gather the support we need. You'll be the one to bridge the gap between Earth and the galaxy. Jack was silent for a moment, absorbing her words. He never thought he'd be in a position to do anything like this. His life had been about living in the moment, enjoying the thrill of exploration. And now here he was, being asked to play a pivotal role in saving his home planet. He felt the weight of it, but there was something about Zero that made him trust her, even if he didn't fully understand everything she was saying. So what now? Jack asked, his voice steady despite the rising tension in his chest. Zero's lips curled into a faint, calculating smile. Now we begin. I've already set up a meeting with the Verxi. They're the biggest threat right now, and we need to ensure they don't make any aggressive moves against Earth. If we play our cards right, we can turn them into allies, but you'll need to convince them. You're the key, Jack. Jack let out a slow breath. He wasn't sure if he was ready for this, but one thing was clear. He wasn't going to back down now. If Zero was right and Earth's future was on the line, then he had to help. He wasn't sure how he was going to pull it off, but he was certain of one thing. The game had changed. And he wasn't about to let it slip through his fingers. I'm in, Jack said, his voice firm. Let's do this. Zero nodded, her gaze intense. Good. But be careful, Jack. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and there are forces here that will stop at nothing to control Earth. Trust no one. Not even me. Jack raised an eyebrow, but there was no hint of doubt in his eyes. I'll keep that in mind, he said with a grin. After all, I'm not one to trust easily. Zero's smile faded into something more serious. I'm not asking you to trust me completely, but you'll have to trust that we're in this together. And I promise you, if you help me, you'll see humanity's true power unfold. As she stood to leave, Jack felt the weight of what lay ahead. The casual flirtation he had started the night with had now turned into something much bigger. A battle for Earth's future was beginning, and he had just been thrown into the center of it. But one thing was certain, this would be a journey like no other, and as Jack watched Zero walk away, he couldn't help but feel that his life was about to change forever. The neon lights of Area Station flickered outside the small secure room where Jack sat, alone with his thoughts. He had barely slept since the conversation with Zero, his mind buzzing with the strange new reality she had introduced him to. Earth was caught in the crossfire of intergalactic politics, and now he was being dragged into a situation that was far bigger than anything he had ever imagined. The implications of Zira's words weighed heavily on him. Earth, the quiet, isolated planet at the edge of the galaxy, was about to become the epicenter of a galactic power struggle. And somehow Jack Harrow, a guy who had once considered himself just a charming, carefree traveler, was now a key player in this vast game of politics and power. He stared at the window, watching as the sprawling station moved against the backdrop of distant stars. The beauty of it all was not lost on him, but his mind couldn't help but focus on the danger that was looming. His life had taken a turn he couldn't have predicted, and everything was about to change. The door to his room slid open with a quiet hiss, and Jack looked up to see Zira enter. Her usually composed demeanor was a little more tense today, the usual calm replaced by an air of urgency. "Are you ready?" Zira asked, her voice steady, but there was something more behind her words. She was no longer the aloof alien diplomat he had flirted with the night before. She was now the leader of a cause, one that could change the fate of both Earth and the galaxy. Jack nodded, standing up from where he had been pacing. "Ready for what exactly?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. Zira's expression was serious, her violet eyes focused and sharp. "We're meeting with the Verxi today. I've arranged for us to speak with their High Council. They're the most immediate threat to Earth right now. If we can get them on our side, we'll have a much better chance of securing Earth's safety." Jack frowned. "So what's the plan? Just waltz in there and hope they don't vaporize us?" Zira gave him a look that almost seemed amused. "It's more complicated than that. The Verxi aren't interested in deals that are too easy. They respect strength, and they value those who can offer something of real worth. We'll have to convince them that Earth's value lies not just in its resources, but in its potential." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You're talking about me, aren't you?" Zira didn't flinch. "I'm talking about all humans. You represent the untapped potential of your species, and right now that's what the Verxi are looking for." The words sank in. Jack had been more or less coasting through life, taking whatever came his way with a smile and a shrug. But this was something else entirely. If Earth's future truly rested on his shoulders, then he was in way deeper than he had ever expected. As Zira turned to leave the room, Jack followed. "What's the catch?" he asked, his voice laced with skepticism. "I mean, this all sounds too good to be true. If they're such a threat, why are we walking into their den?" Zira glanced back at him, a hint of something unreadable in her eyes. "Because they want Earth, Jack, and that means they want you. They don't see you as a threat. They see you as a potential ally, and they'll want to make sure you don't become a threat later." The words hung in the air as they walked through the bustling halls of Area Station. The station's corridors were lined with merchants selling exotic wares, travelers coming and going, and diplomats rushing off to important meetings. Despite the chaos, there was a strange calmness between Jack and Zira. They both knew that what they were about to face was bigger than either of them. When they arrived at the meeting room, it was an intimidating sight. The room was dimly lit, its walls lined with strange, shimmering alien technology that Jack could only guess the purpose of. At the center of the room sat the Verxi High Council, a group of towering reptilian creatures with glowing eyes and sharp features. They were massive, their scales reflecting the dim light, and they looked at Jack with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. Zira stepped forward confidently, her silver skin almost glowing under the light. Jack followed, his pulse quickening as the Verxi turned their attention toward him. It was clear they didn't trust him, and he felt the weight of their gaze like a physical pressure. "Zira of the Xanthi," one of the Verxi said in a low, rumbling voice. "We've heard much about your human guest. What is it you seek from us?" Zira's voice was steady, commanding. "We seek an alliance. Earth's future is at a crossroads, and the factions that want to control it will stop at nothing. But humanity's potential, its ability to adapt and evolve under pressure, could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. We want the Verxi's help in protecting Earth from those who would see it destroyed." The council members exchanged glances, their glowing eyes narrowing. Jack could sense their skepticism. They were intelligent, calculating, and they didn't trust easily. "And why should we trust you?" another Verxi asked, his voice dripping with suspicion. "You are a human. Your species has not proven itself in the galaxy. You are weak, divided, and unproven." Jack straightened, fighting the urge to look away from the council's penetrating gaze. We may not have the military might or the resources you have, but we've got something else. We've got the ability to adapt, to innovate. When faced with adversity, we don't fold, we fight back. Zira turned to him, a slight but approving nod. It was the first time she had shown him such approval, and Jack felt a sense of pride in that moment. He knew he couldn't afford to be just some guy here. He had to show the Verxi that humanity could be more than just an afterthought. But that's not enough, one of the Verxi council members growled. You're asking for our protection, but what do you offer in return? What value does Earth have to us beyond your untapped potential? Zira stepped forward, her voice cool but firm. Humanity is not simply potential. We are the key to an entirely new way of thinking, something you've never considered before. We'll offer knowledge, innovation, and, if necessary, military support. If Earth is left unprotected, the balance of power will shift. The galaxy will be forever changed. Jack felt the tension in the room thicken. It was clear that the Verxi were not easily convinced. They valued power and they valued strength above all else. But Zira had a plan, and Jack was starting to see it unfold before him. The council deliberated among themselves, their voices low and rumbling. Jack couldn't make out the words, but he could feel the pressure building. Zira stood by his side, calm and collected as the minutes ticked by. Every second that passed felt like an eternity. Finally, the council spoke again. We will consider your request, one of the Verxi leaders said. But understand this. If Earth does not live up to its potential, we will not hesitate to take matters into our own hands. You will be our ally if, and only if, you prove your worth. Zira bowed her head slightly, acknowledging the challenge. I understand, and we will prove it. As they left the room, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that things were far from settled. The Verxi weren't convinced, but at least they hadn't outright rejected them. There was a long road ahead, and the stakes were higher than ever. I thought they were going to rip us apart, Jack muttered as they walked down the hallway. Zira glanced at him, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. Don't get too comfortable. This is just the beginning. We've gained their attention, but we still have much to prove. Jack nodded, the weight of his role in this new chapter of history settling heavily on his shoulders. There was no turning back now. He was part of something far bigger than himself, and he would have to rise to meet it. The galaxy had its eyes on Earth, and on him.